As always, it's a pleasure to be back on the PowerPlayChess channel. Thanks, Danny, for having me. I hope you're enjoying a small break, but good news for you guys. He is back very soon again. For today, I would like to show you 5 very interesting examples from top level chess. As at the moment, there's a big open tournament taking place in UAE, in Sharjah to be precise. It's an open tournament with 80 players. I think the lowest rated player is still 2500 plus. And normally when you think, okay, these top guys, they have very difficult games, it's difficult to understand. Well, don't go away. These 5 examples I'm going to show you, they are in fact very understandable. And these are the ones you can even find in your own tactical exercises. So let's have a look at the first example. It's a game played in the very first round on the top board between Christopher Yu, very strong young American player, against Parham Maghsoodloo, the top seed of the event with a rating of 27-34. And let's have a look at the position. It's black to play. And let's try to study what is going on in this position. As the first thing what you probably would spot is that the king on d2 is not looking great. It's still in the middle. White's pieces, they are not very nicely connected. There are no threats and black is having a huge advantage. But do you see the killer move here for black? Well, let me help you a bit here, because the first move I would look at is, well, there is the move queen d4 check. Looks very natural to bring the queen in, but the king is happy to escape and try to survive an endgame with queens coming off the board. So let's take it back. There's no need to give that check immediately, and instead let's try to find out if there are other candidate moves. So when the opponent's king is stuck in the middle, what you would like to do is ensure that the king is not able to run away. So for instance, if you give the other check, bishop f4, looks as if the king is mated, but the knight still covers the square. And the problem is that, well, there's queen takes f2, king c1, the king goes away anyway, and after queen e3, queen d2, white is forcing the exchange of queens as the knight is protected anyway. So let's take it back one more time. But we understand that this knight on h3 is a very important defender, as it both covers the f2 pawn as well as the f4 square. But pieces which have multiple tasks, they are usually very vulnerable. And here, with a very nice deflection motive, black has a big shot. As the move played in the game was the move queen takes f2. Brilliant queen sacrifice, with the point that after knight takes f2, there is the move bishop f4 with checkmate. As look, you see that the bishops are covering these squares from the white king, pardon me, and the black rook on e8 also covers the e1 square. So this is a very nice typical example of deflecting the defender, and therefore queen takes f2 is the killer move. White is unable to take the queen, instead played here the move king c1, but after queen e3, king to b1, bishop to d4, black has an overwhelming advantage. Look at these bishops, look at the rook, the queen and the passed pawn on f3. Black had no difficulties to convert it. Let's go to the second example, as it's also from the first round. This time it was played on board 4. Yu Yangyi, fellow countryman of the newly crowned world champion Ding Liren. But Yu Yangyi is a very strong number 2 of his country. He's playing with the white pieces against Greek Grandmaster Dimitris Mastrovassilis, and black's king is looking wide open. We are looking for a way trying to infiltrate and create new threats. So, of course, we are focusing on the king, on the weak spots. So we see also the pawn on h6 is vulnerable, but also that knight on f6. It's standing there in black's position. And imagine if you're able to create a mating threat together with the queen. Well, that would be great news. But let's see what happened in the game. There followed the move queen to e4 with a big threat of queen h7 with checkmate. And there's no way black can defend it with a piece there or interfere. There are no ways apart from going away with your king to g7, which does attack the knight. And that looks as if things are okay, because now if you would give the check on h7, there's king takes f6 and the black king escapes. But the trick here is that now it's time to eliminate another defender. If you cannot play for mate, always look at possibilities trying to win material yourself. Knight takes d7, eliminates the defender of that knight on c6. White captures the piece, black has no choice but recapturing, and then after queen takes c6, queen takes c6, bishop takes c6, white is a full piece up and will eventually win the game very easily. So that's what happened in the game, and after the move queen e4, black resigned. This is very, very important that you try to figure out what is vulnerable. Look for always for more than one particular weakness. And in this case, you see that this knight on c6, as it's potentially under threat of both the bishop and queen, can actually be eliminated after we take off the bishop from d7. So that's game over. Let's go to the third example. And that's actually a very, very interesting position from two Indian youngsters. Pragnananda playing with the white pieces against Raunak Sadhwani. Was played in the second round. And in fact, this game I've covered myself on my own channel, Robert Riss Chess. So feel free to have a look if you're interested. And I only show you the end of the game, as here Pragg found an incredible move. But let's try to understand what is actually going on. As you can see, from a material perspective, black is a pawn down. That's not great, but even worse for him is it's king safety. That's what we should focus on, because as you can see, the king is unable to leave the back rank. So imagine that black rook would not be there. It's time to go for a mating attack on the back rank. But how do you deflect that rook on a7? That is the big question. Pragg had no difficulties to find this move, and I hope you can spot the right idea yourself as well. As in the game, there followed the brilliant move, queen a7. Fantastic move to place your queen on a square where it can just be captured by the enemy's rook. But the point, of course, is that if you do capture the queen, there is this move, rook to c8 with check. And as I mentioned, this knight takes away the g7 square. Black can only block with a bishop, but then there would follow rook takes f8, and it's checkmate. So let's go back to that moment with queen a7. You are trying to deflect the rook, but at the same time you're actually also threatening the bishop on e7. So black could still try here the move rook to e8. Very important idea. It looks as if the game goes on, but what we have learned from the previous move already is that the rook is actually a pretty bad defender. Once it has left the back rank, it's just going to be made. So here, one more time, we can deflect the rook with a nice queen sacrifice. It's this time queen takes e7. As you're capturing the bishop, this time you're even threatening mate yourself as well. There is no way out for black. If he takes, rook takes e7, rook c8, rook e8, and rook takes e8 with checkmate. So that's interesting. You see from this example again that we see a vulnerable king, and you look in the direction of the enemy's king. So a move like queen h6, it's also a good move. It's maybe the first move you're looking at, but don't forget to have control over the entire position. And here, this move queen a7 goes totally into the wrong direction, as it may seem, but it does attack two vulnerable points in black's position. Both the rook and the bishop, they are unprotected. Well done. Let's go to the next exercise. It's round 3, game of Platon Galperin from Ukraine against Sanan Shugirov. And things have gone horribly wrong for white. And there are various ways to proceed. But I would like to challenge you to find the most powerful continuation, to finish off the game and force the opponent immediate resignation. It's black to play, and you see that white's king is wide open, doesn't have that much support from its own pieces, and you're looking for ways to deliver checkmate as quickly as you can. But for instance, the check you're looking for, the move queen f4, doesn't work because the bishop still covers d square, so the queen will be taken in that case. Let's take that move back and see if there is maybe a better way to proceed. And note that other checks you should also look at, they don't work. Rook c3 can be met by knight takes c3, but now we have understood that the bishop is a very important piece. Let's try to eliminate that piece. Eliminate a defender. It's such an important tactical theme in so many positions. Here, the key move is rook takes c1. Was played in the game and white resigned here because there's not much you can do. Like if you do recapture on c1, then it's queen f4 with checkmate. Beautiful mating pattern. The king cannot go anywhere and the knight does support the queen. But as you understand, you had to eliminate that bishop first. All right, then we go to the last example. And this is probably the most difficult example. And anyway, I think it's a challenging exercise. So let's see what happened here. Black is already quite comfortable here. With the bishop on d4, it's attacking both the pawns on b2 and e5. So in the game, Lucas van Foreest, playing with the white pieces against Baratakoti Harsha, Lucas played here the move bishop to c3, trying to offer the exchange of bishops, a very reasonable idea. And black has two possibilities to take, either with the knight or with the bishop. But if you do take with a knight, the problem is that white is going to recapture with the b pawn. And then you see that the bishop is pinned and unable to leave the d file, as the queen would be hanging on d8. So therefore, black decided to take with the bishop on c3. That's a good move. And now the obvious recapture would have been here, knight takes c3. But white didn't play this move, and I think he didn't like this option, because now there is knight takes c3. If you do take on d8, there is knight takes e2 as an intermediate check, followed by recapturing the rook on d8. Black will be material up. White would have to recapture, but in this position, black is doing absolutely fine, as white's pawns on c3 and e5, they're absolutely vulnerable. Lucas didn't like that perspective at all, and rather than recapturing on c3, he thought, let's first trade off the knight on d5. So he went for bishop takes d5. Very understandable continuation. But what did Lucas overlook here? Pause the video for a second if you would like to give yourself a bit more time to figure out what the best continuation is, because it's quite a remarkable move which was overlooked by such a strong grandmaster. Obviously, if you do recapture on d5, then there is knight takes c3, and white is doing pretty okay. It's a more or less balanced position. There's pressure against the pawn on d5, but maybe black is going to push the pawn. So that's not what Lucas was fearing at all. And what you should consider then instead, well, you could move the bishop away to any square, but don't forget that white is then actually intending to take on c6, capturing the knight. He will be a piece up, and black is unable to recapture as the queen on d8 would be hanging. So, for instance, an in-between move like bishop takes b2, hitting the rook in the corner, can just be met by queen takes b2, e takes d5, queen takes b7, with once again a more or less even position. But the key move in this position for black is not to take on d5, not to capture anything, but create an even stronger threat. There is this move knight to d4. And this is difficult to see because you would expect black to have recaptured somehow. But with this move, black sets even a bigger threat, hitting the queen on e2. And now the big problem is that if the queen would go somewhere, let's say the queen goes to g4, then the simplest continuation here would be to play bishop takes b2. As simple as that. The bishop is no longer hanging, and in fact the rook is hanging in the corner. Black is gonna win material. Of course, after queen g4 you should not take the bishop, because there would follow knight takes c3, attacking the queen goes away, and then both white's queen and rook are hitting the knight on d4. Let's go back to that position after knight d4, because what is actually going on? White doesn't want to lose its queen. The queen could go to another square instead of g4, but once again, if the queen would go to d3, the big problem is there is bishop takes b2, and everything is hanging. The bishop on d5, as well as the rook in the corner on a1. There's nothing white can do to avoid the loss of big material. The only alternative I could imagine here is something like rook takes d4 to eliminate that annoying knight. As there is bishop takes d4, black is just a full exchange up and will have no difficulties to convert it once the pieces are going to be activated. So the big problem with the move knight d4 is that the queen should go away, and after that the pawn on b2 can be taken and the rook is hanging in the corner. Lucas didn't want to play on, resigned, his position is absolutely hopeless. But I thought these 5 tactical exercises, they were very interesting and even very understandable for amateur players like us. So the interesting thing is that I have selected a lot of material myself. I've recently published for ChessBase a new course, actually 2 courses for players rated between 1000 and 1600. There are a lot of tactical themes discussed, including simple basic tactical ideas like a double attack, X-ray, discovered attack, pins, etc. A lot of basic simple tactical ideas, as well as somewhat more advanced tactics where you have to play an intermediate move or set up the tactic yourself for one extra move. I believe this is very useful, and therefore I wanted to show you these examples as well, because I believe these simple tactics, you don't only see them in games between amateurs, you see it even at the highest level. These tactics, to master them, it's absolutely key in order to become a better player. Hope you enjoyed this video, and hopefully we see each other soon again. Bye bye.